Welcome to Old Guy Tech,
the OGT.TV recording studio.
Technology for the rest of us.
Hi everybody, thanks for watching Rob Charney and John DiAgostini, and Sheriff of El Dorado County, and we're here today to talk about what's going on in El Dorado County, and we got a couple of topics that are really important to us, and that's the realignment situation that you got going on with the jail, and then the United States Forest Service situation. And I think most people have been asking me, you know, what's John doing? Why is he doing what he's doing? And I thought maybe this would be a good opportunity for you to talk a little bit about what's going on with the Forest Service situation.
Sure. So we'll start with that one.
Let's start with that.
Well,
one.
First of all, I appreciate the forum here because the media tends to take things out of context.
Right.
You know, you give a 15-20 minute interview and it ends up as a 10-second soundbite.
Yeah, exactly.
But I also want to, say a little bit that, I want this is done. It's over with.
Right.
I'm moving forward.
Right.
Every time I speak on it, it seems like I don't want it to feel like I'm pouring salt in the wound of the Forest Service. That's not it. We had an issue. We dealt with it. And we're moving forward. And I'll kind of give it all in a nutshell. And as the media correctly reported, since I took office, well, I'll back up. Even while I was campaigning, I heard a lot of complaints about the style that the Forest Service was instituting law enforcement,
right?
How they were doing it,
right?
After I was elected, those complaints became more pronounced, more concise, and I actually reached out to certain people and said, look, when you're getting these complaints, I want them firsthand. I don't want to hear hearsay. My brother-in-law said that this happened, whatever.
Right, you want it from the horse.
I want it from the horse's mouth. I want to know what happened. So I started getting, and via email, via snail mail, however I got them, some face-to-face, that I always asked to back up with an email. And I had meetings with U.S. Forest Service management, the LEO, the law enforcement side of the office here in El Dorado County,
right?
To fix the situation, to take care of it, and it never happened. So after a few meetings, the last one of which was very pointed, what I expected, what I wasn't going to tolerate any further. We even went so far as to provide training for a certain LEO officer by one of our deputies to show this is how we do it in El Dorado County. This is how we expect law enforcement to be done in El Dorado County.
Okay.
Our vision statement at the El Dorado County Sheriff's Office, modern approach to traditional law enforcement values, total enforcement on crime and criminals, total care for victims, witnesses, and the community, and total professionalism through training and by example. And that's for everybody. The residents, the visitors to our forest, everybody.
Right. As it should be.
We made that very clear many times. Under 830.8A of the California Penal Code, it's a section that lays out the authority of federal law enforcement officers in regards to state law, regards to enforcing the penal code, enforcing the vehicle code, enforcing the health and safety code, and whatnot.
So that's the guideline.
That's the guideline, 830.8A.
All right.
Interestingly enough, at the bottom of 830.8A, it specifically exempts U.S. Forest Service law enforcement officers and BLM rangers. They get their authority to enforce state law in California only from the sheriff or the chief of police in whose jurisdiction they are operating.
Interesting.
Well, when I was sworn in, I inherited the current MOU, which gave a blanket authorization to Forest Service LEOs.
Okay. Now that MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, was prior to you coming on board.
That's right.
Okay.
But I also kept it up. I did sign a new MOU that says yes, you can have this because it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be a symbiotic relationship.
Sure.
They're up in the forest. when they see a violation of law, they can handle it. We don't have to respond, and vice versa.
Right.
If they're down somewhere and we can help them out, it's supposed to work both ways.
Right.
So, again, after numerous attempts to try and bring them in line, so to speak,
Right.
that
Right.
apparently fell on deaf ears, and some other instances that came up regarding how law enforcement was being conducted in El Dorado County on the Forest Service's behalf.
Okay.
A couple of which were some campouts that some groups were having up in the forest that, in my opinion, would have been a First Amendment violation if they would have been evicted out of the forest. And ultimately they did agree and they didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was some confusion as to some investigative authority on the part of U.S. Forest Service and their resource availability to assist other agencies with fire investigations or crime investigations in the forest. To which I was pretty clear that you don't get to pick and choose which part of this authority you want to use.
Right.
You either got it all and you work together with everybody,
Right.
or
Right.
you don't have any of it.
Okay. All right.
So, again, after numerous attempts over and over, trying to come on, guys, let's
Sure.
please get
sure,
this,
sure.
please get this.
Right.
I came to the conclusion that it wasn't going to work.
What's going to happen?
It isn't going to happen.
So now the authority on the Forest Service, their headquarters, and who is in charge of those deputies is in San Francisco.
Well, Vallejo actually.
Okay, but
Vallejo.
not in El Dorado County.
Well, yes, there's a captain here.
Oh, there's a captain.
There's a captain
Okay.
here that is supervises them.
Okay.
Which, if you look at the structure compared to a sheriff's office, the captain is more like a sergeant.
Okay.
In fire world, you think Forest Service, they're in the fire world.
Right.
They're
all
in the
right.
resource world. So
Gotcha. Okay.
who's the authority on an engine?
Right.
Or in a fire department? It's
Right.
the chief,
Chief.
or the captain. The
Gotcha.
captain. So they use that same structure.
Okay. Now I understand. Okay.
So we have a captain here. Then we have a regional special agent in charge in Vallejo, and that is Scott Harris,
Okay.
whom I'll get to in a minute.
Okay.
So I made the decision that I'm done. I've had it. My citizens, the citizens of El Dorado County, the people of El Dorado County, the visitors to our forest, it's hurting our economy.
Right.
If you read some of the blogs on some of the post boards on the internet,
Right.
People weren't coming back. They said, I'm not going to go back up there and subject myself and my family to this type of treatment. That's hurting our economy in El Dorado
Absolutely.
County.
Well, I heard from people that were scared, literally scared.
Yes.
To come.
Yes. So I drafted the letter to Scott Harris,
Okay.
the captain's boss. After advising the captain, you will be receiving a letter. It was drafted to Scott Harris, informing them that per the MOU, it's written right in there that 30 days notice, this MOU is terminated without cause. I don't even need to have a reason. I can just say we're done.
Right.
And that's how the letter was written, and that it will be effective as of July 22nd. So we still have another week and a half yet to
Okay.
go.
All right.
I had a meeting with Scott Harris. Called me, and we had a fantastic meeting. He understood my position. He respected my position. He had to ask if I would reconsider. I mean,
Sure.
he had to. I understand
Sure.
that.
Right.
And I politely declined and said no, that you have an opportunity now. As I had told the captain, you have an opportunity to fix this.
Right.
So you deal with it now with just enforce the federal laws for a couple years. Let's see if you can get on the right side of the page, just doing what you have legal authority to do that I have nothing to say about at
Okay.
this point.
Which is
The federal law, federal laws on
Federal
federal lands or within the operational area
Within the
forest.
Forest Service preview. In other words,
Yes.
Yes.
And that does include, there's a lot of private lands that are within the Forest Service area.
Right. Right.
A lot of private land holdings.
Right.
Most of which obviously is SPI, the timber
Mhm.
holdings that
Mhm.
they have. And that they have, if federal law, if something that occurs on private land can impact the federal land, and there's a federal statute, they do have that authority to enforce it. So I said, a couple years, we'll look at it, see how you guys are doing. If after a couple years you've proven yourself that you can conduct your business as I see fit to conduct law enforcement in El Dorado County, then we'll revisit it. But if we do revisit it, it will more than likely be more in line with the Shasta model, in which in Shasta County the sheriff there gives individual authority, not blanket authority. So each individual law enforcement officer that is assigned to that forest up there meets with the sheriff.
Right.
And the sheriff goes over his expectations.
Right.
And signs off on it there. And then at any given time, much as the blanket order, he can pull the individual's authority.
Okay. All right.
So that's where we are now. I'm confident. I feel confident that Forest Service management gets it. I believe there was some major lacks of communication on their side.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe they're going to get it. I hope they're going to get it. And we can get back to working together.
So, did we have, let's, for sake of argument here, did we have one or two officers that seemed to abuse maybe their authority, and this was what was happening within the forest?
Simple answer is yes.
Okay.
Yes. I would say it was more one than anybody, but it was starting to bleed over, and I was getting complaints on others as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It was going the wrong direction instead of the right
direction. Okay.
So this is the solution. Yes, I have overwhelmingly support for it. I mean, probably 30-1 as far as from the community and nationwide.
Oh yeah.
It's been overwhelmingly supportive. The few that have, the question has been, can he do this? Can he even do this? Well,
Right,
yes, I
right.
can do it. I researched the law. I've
Right.
researched the case law. I
Right.
know what I can do. I know what I can't do. And again, it's kind of odd that even in that 830.A, why is U.S. Forest Service LEOs and BLM Park Rangers specifically exempted from that section?
That is
There's a
interesting.
reason for that.
Yeah. They must have seen it coming.
So, so I do have the legal authority to do what I've done.
Right. Right.
A question has been, well, if something happens in the forest now, now we're going to have a longer response from the sheriff's office, and public safety is going to be compromised. I'll adamantly
You disagree.
deny that.
You disagree
I totally
with that.
disagree
Yeah,
with
right,
that.
Absolutely.
When somebody in the forest, number one, who do they contact? They contact, somehow they get a hold of 911.
Right.
Up in the forest, there's still cell service up there in a lot of places.
Yeah, there are.
We respond. We're the
Right.
ones that respond.
Okay.
Yes, there are times where we will see if there's a Forest Service LEO that is nearby that can help us.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, we're still going to do that.
Right.
And they're still going to ask for our help.
Right.
They're just not going to be the primary agency, and they're not going to be able to have, they will not have the authority that they had before as the primary agency, primary responder.
So then,
But many times
okay.
too, when we call, they're not available.
Right.
They're not available. And that was one of the arguments that came up. Some of the stuff that was being helping some of these other agencies out. Well, we don't have the resources. We don't have the resources. Wait a minute. You have resources to enforce vehicle code violations and run traffic control on Ice House Road, but you don't have the resources to help an allied law enforcement agency out. It doesn't work that way. You can't pick and choose.
Right.
You want all the authority, or you don't want any. So, it's not going to jeopardize public safety in our forest. We have deputies up in our forest right
Okay.
now. We have
Right.
a Rubicon patrol deputy. We also
Right.
have we do get some money from the Forest Service. Maybe that'll change now. We'll
Yeah.
see.
We'll see.
But they're up there patrolling and taking care of the public up there. So that's it in a nutshell. And again, I'm hoping that this is over. It's done. I
Right.
don't want to pour salt in the wound. It's not. This is not the objective. This is not the direction I want to go. It's done. Let's move on.
So the captain and how many actual, they're not deputies, agents, I guess is what they are,
Law enforcement
Was it
officers, LEOs,
actually work for the Forest Service.
here in El Dorado County.
in
I
El Dorado
believe he has 5.
He has 5.
I believe he has 5, and then the captain.
So there's probably a rotating, but maybe two at any given time.
Yeah, one or two, depending on the day of the week and if it's a holiday weekend
Right,
and what
right.
the population increases in our forest. I mean, on any given day, the population on a weekend, the population can go from 30 folks enjoying the forest, camping and whatnot,
Sure.
to
200.
3,000,
Yeah, oh, yeah,
5,000.
right.
Huge,
Yeah.
big jump. So it's good. We're good. El Dorado County's good.
So you talked about having their LEOs work
Mm-hmm.
with your deputies. How is that working out? And is that it's still an ongoing process?
No. That was a pilot program, a
Right.
training program.
Okay.
Much like when we get a new deputy in, they have
Right.
to go through a field training program.
Sure.
We took one of their officers and said, "Look, this is not how we do it. This is
Right.
how we do it."
Right.
And he rode with our deputy for quite some time. And as soon as it was
And-
off training, went right back to I started getting the same complaints again.
So, okay. So they, just so that everybody out there understands the situation, John has authorization, Sheriff DiAgostini, excuse me, has authorization, and the code, again, is
830.8A of the penal
okay,
code.
830.8A in the code. Look it up if you have any questions, and it gives the sheriff discretion as to, under a memo of understanding, as to how the law enforcement from the Forest Service runs.
What I give them authority is to enforce state law,
Okay,
and I can also take that authority away,
which you've done.
which I have done.
Okay, so give me an example of the difference between a federal, what they can do under their federal statutes, and what they can't do now as far as the state goes.
Well, there's no federal traffic statutes as far as equipment violations
So-
or minor misdemeanor penal code crimes and things like that. They
Gotcha.
don't have that in the federal book.
Okay, so nothing
So they
like you're
can't
parking
enforce
so
those.
many feet off the road.
That is under their Forest Service travel rule.
Okay,
So they still will have authority to do that.
all right. Well, that's one of the big ones.
That's one of the big ones.
Well, that's why I want that clear.
But stopping vehicles on Ice House Road
Right.
for a no front license plate got knocked off on the Rubicon Trail, or coming around a corner, maybe touching the yellow line, whatever it is, any vehicle code violations, they're not going to be able to enforce.
Enforce. Right.
No.
So that type of harassment's gone.
It should be.
Because I have heard from many people, and some of it's hearsay, because I wasn't there, just like you weren't there. But I know that some people that have been up in that forest their whole lives, going up in the same areas, have had difficulty with running into these law enforcement officers. And like I said, we're literally saying, I'm never coming back. So we now we know as far as that parking situation, and I don't know the exact ruling. Do you remember what that is?
And there's travel management rules, and I don't
I can't
know what the
remember now.
sections are.
But it seems to be one of the biggies that they jump on a lot. Now, let me ask you a question.
Hopefully, they will go more towards the education side of the
I hope
house
so.
rather than the just jumping into issuing everybody a ticket.
Right. Which seemed to be the case.
We want people to abide by the laws, but most people just don't know. And you can get you go a lot further with some education
Absolutely.
and some talking to the people and making them understand why it is,
Right.
rather than just jumping in with an attitude, writing a ticket and walking away.
Yeah, because the ticket is all that's going to do is piss somebody off,
And they won't come back, and they won't spend their money at the
Right.
gas station on the
Right.
way up the road. They won't
Right.
stop at the grocery store and buy some groceries. They won't visit El Dorado County, the El Dorado Forest anymore.
No, they won't. And they may consider not going into a D zone for a hunting situation. They may not, it affects so much economy as well as the use of the forest, which it seemed to me that they were almost to a point where it was, hey, this is our forest and we don't want you in it. And you and I know, no,
The people's
it's the
forest,
people's forest.
not the king's forest.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be the wise use, not the non-use.
Absolutely.
And it seemed to me that they were going for non-use.
Non-use.
They didn't want anybody up there.
Well, there will always be a group out there that want that.
Well,
Non-use.
yeah, that's
That-
true.
that's true. We're always going to be fighting that battle. But the government, the U.S. Forest Service, the government should not be part of that.
Should not be part of it. That's correct.
Should not be part of that.
And it should be managed wisely.
That's right.
Good, good. How about another example? What about campsites? I had heard that there were people in a camp area, an approved area and campsite, that they've had law enforcement come in and demand to see. Question is, do you have any firearms? I demand to see your firearms. Are they loaded or unloaded? Any kind of thing like that.
What it should be is, folks, how are you? Having a good time? You got a campfire permit? You don't? Hey, there's a ranger station down the road. We can probably go down and get one right now. They're open. It's staffed. Please take care of that. Do you know how to put your fire out when you're done? Hey, have a great time. Enjoy
Right.
the forest.
Right.
Not, nobody move. Let me see your hands. Where's the guns? That's unacceptable.
Yeah.
That's unacceptable.
Good. I'm glad it's unacceptable, because it just, as well as I do, we're facing so many issues here on gun debate situations. We're not going to get into a Second Amendment debate here and all the crap that's going on in the down in Sacramento. And
They're
all that
moving
stuff.
through. Every one of them moving through. Every one.
There's
374, the magazine one. Every one of them's moving through.
now I heard the magazine one was thrown in the suspense file, but unfortunately they have another month to go where it can be brought up
I
again.
just saw an email that it was going to committee in the assembly. The SB bill was
Yeah.
going through, made through the Senate side, was in the Assembly side, was going to appropriations committee.
Okay. All right.
That's what I thought I read.
It may have been. It may have been. And what happens is sometimes when the two houses can't get to a bill at the same time, they go into a suspense file, and people automatically think, "Oh, well, it's over with. We don't have to worry about it." No. All that means is it's held there until they can get to it. So maybe it is now in the Appropriations Committee, and we know where that's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
So the only choice that I see is trying to get to the governor.
I hope so. I
You
hope he does the right thing.
It's interesting. We have people who swear to me that he is Governor Brown. That is a very, very smart man,
Mm-hmm.
and that he may not necessarily just go completely party line, and he may look at each individual bill. Now, when he was Attorney General, it seemed to me that he was mostly anything that was going to stop you from owning a gun, he pretty much liked. And so I'm not resting easy at all, and I'm not really comfortable with them saying, "Hey, you know what? He's a smart man. Maybe he won't." But we can always hope.
Yeah, and I think I'm one of those ones that told you that he's a brilliant man. I will give him that. I don't agree with everything he does. He doesn't agree, I'm sure, with everything I do.
Right.
But I think I'm praying that he does surprise us, and he doesn't go party line, because I just don't think he will. I really don't. I think there's too much at stake here, and there's too many people that have gone down to that dome and testified on this issue that have finally woken up. The people
Right.
are starting to wake up and get down and make their voices heard. And I think he sees that. Even, and I know this will maybe raise an eyebrow, even Steinberg, I think, is going, "Oh shoot, what did I do?"
Really?
I do, because he's a smart guy, and he has tremendous political aspirations.
Mm.
And I hate to use the P word, but that's what they do down there.
Mm-hmm.
That's their game. It's all politics.
Sure. Right.
And they look at that, and we are, I think, starting to finally make a voice, have a voice, and stand up and say enough is enough. We're not going to stand for this anymore.
Yeah, because they tend to stay in their little world, and maybe in Yee's area and Steinberg's area and all that. All right, they're very liberal, pretty much anti-gun, but it's a small pocket. It's not the whole state. And even economic-wise, if these guys were to look at this in economics, it's hurting the state terribly. And passing the law about, there's one of them that has to do with ammunition. Ammunition has to be a person-to-person transfer. They're trying to stop interstate sales of ammunition is what they're trying to do. They're trying to give you a license. You got to pay for a license. It's good for like 5 years to buy ammunition. And every time you do, you got to leave a thumbprint and all your information. So all it's going to do is that not only is it going to raise the price because it takes so much more work to do all of this, people are going to drive to Nevada. They're going to go to Cabela's. They're going to go wherever.
Shields.
Yeah, Shields. And so who does that hurt? That hurts our local guys.
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely. And I'm not too much up on them right now because I've been diving into some other stuff lately. But the one with the ammunition, if I'm going to Sportsman's Warehouse,
right,
say, hey, pick me up a case of shotgun shells. Can't do that anymore.
Can't do that anymore. No.
Can't do that. I can only buy them for me. I can't give them to you.
You can't give a buddy your own children.
Yeah.
It even goes that far. You can't give your son or daughter a box of shells to go shoot.
No, I just had a good friend of mine picked up 2,000 rounds of 17 HMR for me.
Oh, cool.
That won't happen anymore.
I know. If this passes, it will not.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
No, it is.
Yeah,
And
I scored 2,000 rounds of 17 HMR.
we'll talk off air.
No, they are not for sale.
No, but you have some connections. Maybe I need that help. Because ammunition is so difficult to get right now, and there's many reasons for it. I know that some of you out there are a little paranoid, and it's easy to think, hey, it's a government thing, but I've got some good friends that work for ATK, who is federal, CCI, Hodgdon Powders. I mean, it's the biggest ammunition company in the world, and they're telling me, hey, you know what? We're producing ammunition as fast as we can, as quickly as we can.
People are buying it.
They're hoarding it. That's what's going on, and that's what's hurting it. But there are a couple other issues that they said, hey, this is one of the things that's hurting us a little bit too. We're off topic, but when we get the guns, you're going to get what you're going to get. The brass. The military brass used to always be collected and recycled and given to reloading companies to remanufacture. That brass, my understanding is now, under guidance in the military, is now collected and shipped to China for shredding and remelting down. It's not being remanufactured. That is my understanding what's happening with this. So,
well, the people can push your representatives to say, hey, get that back in there, but more importantly, on our local ranges and stuff, recycle them.
Yeah.
Get them back to the remanufacturers.
Right.
Or if you reload yourself.
And that's what we try to do. We try to encourage those people that are, that are reloaders to make sure that, if you don't reload and you have a buddy reloads, get them the brass.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk real quick then, since we're on brass, let's talk about microstamping for a second. As you know, in 2007, Schwarzenegger signed the microstamping bill, which was suspended due to a patent dispute between a couple of companies. That dispute has been settled, and now supposedly in the state of California, anything coming in new must comply to the microstamping bill. Microstamping, for those of you that don't know what it is that the head of the firing pin is to have a particular serial number that matches a particular firearm, so that when it's fired, that information is then printed on the primer so that it can be read and then brought back to a particular gun. Now, my understanding is it's technology that is not reliable, does not work. Most manufacturers are saying we're not going to do this for only one state, so we're not going to sell guns in California anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're seeing.
But that's the agenda. That's the goal.
That's the goal, absolutely. Because there's so many things. I mean, a criminal could seed an area. He goes to a range and he sees a guy not picking up his shells. Seed it. I mean,
as micro-stamping as that is going to be, and it can be, the way I understand it too, it doesn't have to be just on the primer. It can be on the case head, it can be on the case wall, as long as it's imprinted that identifies that firearm with that.
Right. Somehow, in some
cartridge.
Manner.
Right. Fingernail file, one swipe.
Oh yeah.
As microscopic as that's going to be.
Right.
You can foil it.
Yeah.
You can ruin it.
It's you can polish that firing pin. It'll be gone. Yeah. Then my other question is, what if you break a firing pin? Do you have to get a registered firing pin?
Yeah,
See,
it makes no sense.
Yeah, it absolutely makes no sense, and that's the problem. But that's for another day. Let's talk about realignment. And because you are starting to face the situation. I know you had some room in your jail, but let's tell the people again. Let's remind them what the realignment and the effect with this jail is.
Okay. Well, even as early as last week and a half ago, speaking to a group of people. And I've always said we're unique in El Dorado County. We have room at the end.
Right.
We have beds.
Right.
And we still do. At this point in time, we still do have beds. We're still able to contract out. We have the contract beds that we're selling to Shasta County, Alpine County, and Amador County. We have Trinity County online right now is asking for a contract for inmate beds. But what I've also said all along is this realignment is going to catch up with us. Over the long term,
Right.
we are not going to be in such good a shape. Many of these counties that have right off the bat felt the impacts of realignment, filled their jails up, and boom, they were in bad shape already.
Right.
Those counties that were already on the edge. We've lagged far behind. Now what we're seeing is exactly what we predicted. My jail captain did predict this. Realignment took effect in October of 2011. He said, by the end of December we're going to be full. And then I said, no, let's work on this. Let's all work together. And everything's been fantastic. Working with probation, working with the jail, everybody working together. We put that off until we're coming up to it now.
Okay. So,
And the reasons are, number one, you have the long-term sentences. Whereas before, an inmate came in, sentenced to a felony over a year, or convicted of a felony over a year, went to state prison.
right.
Now, if they're a non-violent, non-serious, non-sex felony, they're staying in county jail up to, I think we have a 11-year sentence or 13-year sentence
Wow.
here now in county jail.
Yeah.
So,
I didn't think that was possible.
it's possible. It's happening.
Yeah.
So the cumulative effect of those sentences, of those long-term sentences, is part of the issue. Then you have the issue of classification. I can't house this knucklehead with this knucklehead because they're not going to get along.
Right.
They're different
Right.
gang members
Right. Exactly.
or whatever. So you have to segregate them out.
Sure.
And then you have the higher sophisticated level of inmate. This person that maybe has criminal history, has spent time in state prison. Before, when they would come to the county jail, they said, you know what, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and get through this because I know I'm going to state. When I go there, then I'll start my little gangs, my little prison politics and all that stuff.
Right.
Well, now they're here and they're saying, you know what, I ain't going to state anyway. I'll start my prison games here. So we're starting to see those kind of incidents arise. And because of that, then we're ending up with more ad-seg population. We can't house them with anybody
Yeah.
because they're going to fight, they're going to play their games, they're going
Right.
to do all that stuff. So as a result, today I have, on Monday I believe it was 72 beds open. 72 physical beds without a body in them.
Okay.
But the problem is a lot of those beds are in double bunk cells with somebody that is classified as ad-seg.
And you can't put them
I
together.
can't put anybody with them.
Right.
So in reality, I only had about 20 beds, 18 to 20, I think it was 18 beds
Yeah.
that I could put a body in right now.
Right.
And that number's getting smaller. And it's happening. Now, part of it, I believe, is because it's summertime. We had the 4th of July weekend. We had quite a significant amount of bookings over 4th of July, just people being stupid. And we see those normal spikes over holiday
Always.
weekends
Okay.
and then the weather and things like that, people partying and getting out of hand.
Sure.
So I am forecasting, I believe, with the numbers we have, and I'm thinking maybe a little rosy here, we're going to make it through this year before we're full.
That's not very long.
No, not very long at all.
5 months you're talking about.
Well, I'm into next summer when things start to
okay.
come back up
All right.
again.
All right. All right.
So, what does that mean? Well, we are under a consent decree, a self-imposed consent decree. Years ago, how we arrived there was the jail was full, and I believe it was Sheriff McDonald at the time. Seeing the writing on the wall and seeing what was coming, rather than have the county file a lawsuit, basically sued himself
Mm-hmm.
in a roundabout way and said, we need to put a court mandated cap on our jail before we get sued. And they did. They did. And that's a good thing. Consent decrees, cap numbers are a good thing because it prohibits, it stops the courts from intervening and saying, no, we don't care how many you get in. Double bunk the whole thing, put them all in the gym and everything else, but the county's the one that's on the hook for the lawsuits.
Right.
Period. They're going to be paying. It's going to happen. So what we're doing is we're thinking ahead. Okay, what can we do to mitigate this? Where are we going to go from here? I've always said, last resort is releasing people. We don't want to release people.
Right.
Not without a tail. Not without something over their head that we got them. So we have a couple things. Number one, that has been in the works and has been planned with realignment money, is a day reporting center through probation. A certain inmate, if they're classified as such and they're identified with these evidence-based practices that we're using now, is eligible, then they can get released. They're still serving their sentence,
right,
but they're serving their sentence on the outside.
Okay.
They have to report daily to the probation department and check in.
Mm-hmm.
For a certain population, that works.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody,
no,
but for a certain population, that works. Another option we're looking at is electronic monitoring.
Right. And that's been around for quite a while.
It's been around for a long time, but we don't, in El Dorado County, we haven't utilized it because we haven't had to its fullest extent.
Okay.
We've had room at the end.
Right.
So we're going to have to start looking at other ways of identifying and implementing electronic monitoring, including, and we'll be in talks with both the courts, with probation, and with the district attorney's office on implementation and utilization of this program. Because I want to know, okay, what's going to happen to the knucklehead that cuts this bracelet off? We've all heard those horror stories.
Yeah, right.
There are some counties that are charging them with escape. They're using the escape law. The elements of the crime are close enough, and they're saying, yeah, we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And some district attorneys are charging somebody that cuts off their bracelet, charging them and having successful prosecutions
Right.
with escape.
Right. Right. It should get their attention.
Yeah, have some teeth behind it.
Yeah.
You don't want to do this,
Right.
knucklehead. You
Yeah.
don't want to do
Yeah,
this.
you don't want.
I have a quick question. Would the check-in center also include the monitoring, or is it just voluntary?
The day reporting center?
Yeah.
Could be both. It could be both. You could have folks on EMP, electric monitoring program, that are to check in at the day reporting center, and you can have folks that know they just need to check in. They don't have it. So it could be both sides, everything. So we're trying to get ahead of it as best we can, to have a plan to be ready for this. It's something that I don't like, but this is what we all said would happen with realignment.
Right.
It's not going to work in the long run.
So, we get a lot of these, and I'm going to be honest, I haven't paid attention a lot to this situation, but you hear these headlines that, 100,000 plus inmates are going to be released because of court mandates and all this stuff. Can you explain to me how that works? I mean, are we going to a trustee situation like you were talking about? Okay, this person's basically been a good person, screwed up, they're eligible for a monitoring system, and then they could jump into that. And I'm curious on how these other jails are. How is this being handled? I mean, you can't. Is the court forcing you to release people for overcrowding purposes, or what's the reason behind it?
Well, first of all, we're talking about 2 or 3 different deals here.
Okay.
The one with the court case that told the state of California, you have to reduce your prison population by this many by this date.
And
And
that
the
was
state failed.
okay, and that was because we didn't have enough beds.
That was because of overpopulation.
Okay.
The judge panel said that it was inhumane.
Okay, all right.
Okay, and I'll get in. I'll remind me
Okay.
to ask me about my opinion about this.
All right, all right.
So the state failed. They didn't open up the doors, contrary to popular belief. Oh my gosh, the prison's going to be releasing all these prisoners. That's not how they did it. They did it through attrition. As
Okay.
sentences were being served, as time was coming up, they were getting out. But on the back end, they weren't getting any of these new ones.
Right.
The non-nons were now serving their time in county jail. That's why the realignment, the term realignment,
Right.
they realigned the prison population and the responsibilities from the state to the local counties. Now, this new order by the court that you failed to do it, you will do it. We don't care how you do it. Get it done. And if there's any, this is the kicker that I can't believe that the judges said this. If there's any rules or regulations or laws that are impeding this, they are hereby waived. Release them. Governor Brown, correctly says, no, I'm going to appeal this, and it's working its way up now.
Okay.
And he'll fight it all the way to the top. He'll fight it however far he has to go. By then, they'll be down to their population, and it'll be a moot point. That's my opinion. But that's where they are. Now, to the county side of it, I mentioned the consent decree. Yes, I cannot go over so many. I
Right.
can't go over so many inmates with the classifications and this and whatever.
Period.
Period.
Got it.
So, let's say it's Wednesday afternoon, and I am there. I'm there. Let's say I'm at I have 0 beds. Everything is full.
No way to take anything
No way
else.
to take anything else. And my deputies bring in a suspect for assault with a deadly weapon, and they bring in a suspect for drunken public. Well, we know the drunken public, we're going to be able to hold him in a cell until he sobers up, and we're going to release him on citation.
Mhm.
The assault with a deadly weapon, he's got to be arraigned within 48 hours.
Right.
He's got to make a cell. I just can't keep him in holding until
Right.
he's arraigned.
Right.
Can't do that under Title 15. So I got to put him somewhere. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a list. Okay, we have this many sentence misdemeanors, this many sentence felons, this many unsentenced pre-arraignment or pre-sentencing misdemeanors, this many pre-sentence felons. Obviously, the first thing we're going to look at is misdemeanors.
Sure.
We're going to say,
Right.
okay, here's this list of sentence misdemeanors. They have sentences anywhere from 10 days to 364 days.
Mhm.
Okay? Using evidence-based practices, using these I can't remember the name of it. I want to say it's called Compass, but that's not the right word. It's a matrix that they use to go
Right.
through.
Right.
It looks at the person's criminal history. It looks at their employment
Okay.
history. It looks at their family history. It
Right.
looks at
Right.
everything.
Okay.
And it says, okay, out of these 50 or 40 sentence misdemeanors,
Mm-hmm.
we've identified 4 that will be successful on electronic monitoring. We believe will be successful on electronic monitoring.
Right. Right.
So there's 4 beds right there that I can free up. Okay, which one do I want? Boom, we're going to pop this guy on electronic monitoring so we can make room for this knucklehead. So we'll be ahead of the game always. But
depending if you can put that person into that bed, right? Because
exactly,
right?
exactly. I
Yeah.
might have to release 2
Yeah.
to make room for 1.
Exactly.
And move some. So my jail captain, Randy Pashon, he says it's kind of like a 3-dimensional chess game being played 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365
I can
days a
see
year.
that. Yeah.
You're always, who can you move? How can you move? Who can you put with who? What can you do to forecast? Okay, the weekend's coming up. Saturday night's coming up. They're having this event going on in the county. You know what? That's always good for 3 or 4 arrests. People are
Right.
going to do stupid stuff.
Right.
Where's our beds? You know, some jurisdictions, they'll tell their deputies, hey, you know what? Unless you got a real good reason to hook somebody up, don't arrest them. I'm not big on that because it's part of our vision statement is the total enforcement.
Right.
You do the crime, we're gonna hold you accountable.
That's right.
Total enforcement on crime and criminal. So I don't want to go there. If we can have, if a misdemeanant has been sentenced to 60 days, he served 45 days, we got to make a bed. I don't like doing it anyway, but if we have to, we can put that person on electronic monitoring and we can get through this until we can come up with some fixes down in the dome, which quite honestly, Sheriff Scott Jones has a fantastic program he's come up with input from some of his peers that will work. It's not getting much play down in the Capitol at this point, but hopefully with some of the things that are starting to happen across the state, with pretty much everybody's getting full now.
Right.
We got to do something.
So what, in a nutshell, what's his plan?
Well,
Just an idea.
part of AB 109 has growth. The funding has a growth formula built into it. So
Okay.
every year the numbers, the funding is increasing a little bit out to year 2015 or 2016. I can't remember now. And it all boils down to, and this is one of the conversations we had early on, and that was what I asked you to remind me about,
Right.
my thoughts about this. The mantra for California since the Reagan era, pretty much, we built a few since then, but it has always been, we can't build our way out of this.
Mhm.
We can't build our way out of this. Say, we need more prison beds. No, we can't build our way out of this. We need to find a better way to do this. It's ludicrous. California's population has increased.
Right.
Therefore, the amount of knuckleheads has increased.
Increased along with that.
Therefore, you
Yeah.
need more places to put these knuckleheads.
Right.
So to say you can't build your way out of this problem makes no sense. You don't have a choice. You have to house these people somewhere.
Right.
County jails were never intended and never set up to house and maintain
The long-term.
these long-term, highly sophisticated criminals,
Yeah.
knuckleheads,
Right.
murderers, rapists,
Right.
all this bad stuff.
Right.
Whether they're non or not. That's the non, that's just for this crime they were convicted of.
Mhm.
Who knows what's in their
Mhm.
criminal history.
Right.
So we weren't set up for that in the counties. The state was. So to say that you can't build our way out of it, it can't happen. So what the program, the basics of it is we continue with what we're doing now. We put a cap on sentences. We're not going to have anything in the local jails over a 3 year. If it's over 3 years, they go to state prison.
Mhm.
But put a bright line cap on the sentence.
Mhm.
That's one of the deals.
But you can't do that now.
No,
Okay.
no. Well, part of AB 109 was
Right.
there was no end.
Okay. All right.
We thought there was,
Yeah, but there
but
wasn't.
it didn't happen. So put a cap on the sentences. Take that growth fund, that growth formula, that money. We don't want it. Don't give it to us. We'll do fine. If you cap it 3 years, we don't want it. We'll do fine with what you're giving us now. We'll make it work. We are now. We'll continue to make it work. Take that growth money and put it into a building fund and start building some more beds. Places to house these people.
Sure. Right.
Something else that's not included in that's words starting to come around, and I mean, God bless Reagan. He's one of my heroes, Ronald Reagan, the great communicator. But there's a couple things that he did that I don't so much agree with.
Sure.
He was the spearhead in his administration that reduced or almost eliminated state-run mental health hospitals. Huge population of our state prisons and jails
Right. Our mental health issues.
have mental health issues.
Right. Right.
And yeah, maybe the hospitals weren't being run like they should have been. You know, back then they had the horror movies of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest
Right,
and all that other
right.
stuff, and they showed the inside, that they portrayed the inside of these mental health hospitals, and they were
Right.
just deplorable. Okay,
Sure.
I'll buy that.
Sure, I'm sure there were some.
I'll buy that.
Mhm.
But these people need treatment.
Right.
They need help. And we're not set up for it, and neither is the state. So somehow, with some of that funding or some other funding stream, instead of spending money on all these entitlements and everything else and everywhere else it goes, use it for that. And I think between those two, specifically Scott Jones's plan, the Sacramento plan is what it's being called, with some movement and idea and forecasting and future in the mental health side,
Right.
we can take a big chunk out of what the issues are.
Of course, you're talking about a solution that was, even if you started it today, is years in the making.
Yeah, but they could
So-
start the 3-year max in the growth fund today.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
they have that.
I mean,
and
you
the
gotta start
state's sitting
somewhere.
on some reserves, and they could use some of those reserves and backfill them with the growth funds to get some construction started,
Mhm.
to get some more beds. It could be done. It has to be done. That's the
Yeah.
only way to fix it. As long as you have more knuckleheads, you need more places to put
Yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah. So, let me ask you a question now on how you separate these knuckleheads, just so I get an idea. You've got a knucklehead that's going to have a term of, you said, could go up to 10 or 11 years now,
Could be
right?
100, but yeah, I mean, we have one that's
Okay, so you
11.
got somebody that's long term,
Uh-huh.
right? And then you've got somebody that basically it's a misdemeanor 30-day, 60-day situation.
Mhm.
Is there, would you mix these two together at some point?
Probably not.
Okay,
Probably not.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, you're going to have
I
the
can't
baddest,
think of any.
the baddest of the bad with the bad.
the baddest of the bad usually are by themselves.
Okay.
And that's a huge issue because it cuts down my double bunk cells
Right,
to
now you
one
can only
bunk,
one.
to
Right.
only one. So the baddest of the bad are usually by themselves. And then you look at, okay, well, this Norteño gang member that got arrested for assault with a deadly weapon, and this Norteño gang member that got arrested for spousal abuse, you know what? They look like we can put them together. Everything jives, everything's okay, so we're going to put them in a cell together.
Right.
All those classifications, all the time that goes into it. I mean, we have officers, that's all they do.
Wow.
They play that 3D chess game all the time. That's what they're doing. But it's how you manage that jail population. They're running a city. They're running a small
you see,
city.
I don't think the average person knows or understands what you've got to go through to properly get these people in the right spot. Like you said, you can't mix two opposing gang members together. You can't have an Aryan Brotherhood guy bucking with a black guy, and you got to play all
Huge.
these games. And like you said, you may have beds, but you got no place to put these people.
Right.
So I don't think the general public knows that. They don't understand how much you have to go
Yeah.
through. And hopefully El Dorado County's been lucky and hasn't had any lawsuits filed on them, but I know many counties have.
Absolutely, and they're coming. I mean,
Yeah.
they're coming just because of realignment. Again, because the attorneys that used to prowl the prison grounds for all the lawsuits are now starting to prowl county jails
Okay.
for all these lawsuits.
They're looking for
coming.
work.
They're looking for work. They're
Yeah.
coming. There's another thing that's out there that we're one of the we got the realignment money, of which right now we're sitting on a significant fund balance because of the unforeseens. Plus, some of it is allocated. Most of it is allocated for the day reporting center that we talked about, and some other things that probation and health and human services haven't started yet. But there's a new stream of money out there called AB 1022 funding, which is for realignment beds.
Okay.
Realignment beds. It can't just be used for jail beds, for custody,
Right.
plain custody.
Right.
It
Okay.
has to be tied in with, health or with programming space, or when I say programming, I mean like an education-based type thing, or a drug rehab type thing, or stuff like that. So, maybe 1022 money. And there's, I believe, at this point in time, it's a 25% match. That's another avenue that we're looking at to see if maybe this is something we want to do down the road. Not right now. I've mentioned many times that our focus right now is we need a new sheriff's headquarters.
Right.
That's what we're focused on. That's
Right.
where our energies are going, and we're on that path right now. But in the future, if this and it's going to be around for a while because the funds were set there for this and can also be used for the prison. But for some mental health type beds in El Dorado County, maybe some ideas that we've been floating around out there to see what we can do to alleviate our population.
Well, that
issue
would
with the
certainly
jail.
help. If you get the person classified properly, and it is a mental health issue, and you have a different place to place them.
Yeah, but the hard part about it, though, that I keep coming up with, this is great. We're thinking ahead. We're planning. Yeah, that's an option. We have the match money if we need it with some of the AB 109 money, and also with my contract money that I've been selling. That's almost was it $300,000-400,000 already. With that money, we can make our match if we have to go that way, but you got to staff it.
Yeah.
That's an ongoing cost.
Okay.
And that's where the hang-ups come.
Yeah, I can see staffing being another issue. And then I basically have one other question that I don't understand either. Under realignment, and then you're getting these people brought up to our jail, how are, and who makes the decision of which people come here?
The courts.
So are we getting people that are going through our court system that would have been into a state, would normally, because of their sentence, go to the state, but because the state mandate now in realignment would bring them back and will serve the
Yeah,
term?
the and I can't remember what the code sections are, 1174, whatever, I can't remember what they are. But there's a whole list of violations now that no longer, even though it's a felony, no longer go to state prison. So when when the district attorney charges and they either plead out or they're convicted by a jury of their peers of these charges,
Right.
then the court doesn't really have any say. They don't say, well, I don't want to send you under realignment. You're supposed to go to here, but we're going to send you to the prison. Or under realignment, you're supposed to go to prison, but we're going to have. They don't have any leeway. This is a crime that's under realignment. You spend your time in the county jail. Period.
Interesting. Okay, so that's all through the court system. Well, good. Well, you know what? You brought a wealth of knowledge to me, and I'm hoping to all those people out there too. We didn't get any callers today, but that's okay. It's hot outside.
It's a dry subject.
How's the fire situation up by kyburz? Have you heard?
They what was it this morning? 70% contained or something.
Okay,
like
so
that.
they're knocking it down.
I got a
pretty
phone
good.
call from
Yeah.
Dwayne Nelson from the Forest Service yesterday, and I mean that's good. I still have a good relationship with the Forest Service. It's
Right.
just one issue that we're dealing with.
Right.
But he called me last night and gave me an update and a briefing on what was going on, and they're getting it wrapped up. Pretty much, I think darn near all of it, with the exception of just the bottom, was in the old Fred's fire. So it was burning scrub. It wasn't back in a canopy. It was just burning the brush that had grown since Fred's fire.
Sure.
So
Sure.
if
Good.
you got to have one, I guess
That's
where
one
to
hand. Well, if we could go there and manage it and take all that debris out and clean it up, we wouldn't have these issues, would we?
I know. Absolutely. If you go up Highway 50, you look where they've done some of the clearing, the shitty fuel breaks or whatever you want to call it. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Why don't they do that to the whole forest? Harvest the whole forest like that, and in another 30 years to come back around, they could do the same thing again. They'll have another harvestable.
You know what?
forest.
I'm not a genius, but sounds perfect to me. I've been saying that all along. So, supposedly brighter minds than ours are controlling it, but whatever. Yeah, supposedly. Hey, listen, John. Once again, I want to thank you very much for coming and spending time with us. I think people are going to be able to understand the two main issues that we talked about was the Forest Service issue and obviously realignment, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it again at another time. But thank you very much for coming. And hey, this is Rob Train with Old Guy Tech TV. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.